Welcome to Five or Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Grace.
And I'm Erin, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction play to see if they're a five or a flop.
Our theme for season 6 is All the World's a Stage, so we're reading historical fiction, plays, and musicals. And this is the big one, so we wanted to get it out of the way soon. It's Shakespeare Week.
And when we announced this theme, you may have been thinking, isn't Shakespeare the only one who writes historical plays? Which, not really, but I would say he's the most notable.
Yes, so not all of Shakespeare's plays are historical fiction. We beat this horse to death, but we'll beat it some more. That just because they're old doesn't mean they're historical fiction.
Yes.
But Shakespeare has written about stuff that happened that is older than him.
That is correct.
So we've decided we're going to read 2 plays this week. We're reading one of his histories and one of his tragedies.
Mm-hmm.
So for the history, we're reading King John.
And for the tragedy, we're reading Antony and Cleopatra. So a fun little Royal Diaries throwback season 3.
Exactly. And that will apply to both of the plays if you don't know a lot about King John.
That is true, and I didn't know that until I read this episode script. So
there we go.
Super exciting.
But before we dive in, Erin, do you have anything exciting coming up?
I do. So this upcoming Saturday, as of filming, we are headed to Richmond for my sister's birthday.
Woohoo!
And we're going to, I know you're familiar with this, but the minor league baseball team for Richmond, Virginia is the Squirrels. So we're going to a Squirrels game.
I, first of all, cannot believe that you get to go to their new CarMax Park before me, because they just opened the new, I don't want to say stadium, because I don't think that's what it counts as.
And they have new mascots this season, apparently.
Really?
It's when I went to Richmond a few months ago, that was all Rose and Rose's friends were talking about.
Oh my gosh, sorry, hold on. I have to
I think they're retiring Johnny Cashew, I think was the news.
Oh, that's different. Okay, I thought you meant...
No. And they are, like, bringing in the new... It's like how the Nats have, like, the presidents.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you meant that Nutsy the squirrel was going away, and I was about to be shocked, but I just Googled it real quick, and he's not. So
okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, they're, like, swapping some out and bringing some in.
Okay. Well, good for them. It's... A rebrand and a refresh is never a bad thing.
Exactly. Wouldn't that be crazy if the Nats just, like, decided to swap out some of the presidents, though?
No, that is crazy. Like, who would lose then? Because Teddy's the one that always loses the president race.
I know.
Anyway.
They'd have to pick a new loser.
I know. My thing is sports related as well. I have had, like, my, 3-week time frame is extremely sports dominant. Because...
Kind of not out of the normal for you.
Frankly, even more than normal. Like,
Okay.
even for me, I'm like, this is a lot. Because I went to a Defenders game recently. We won. I'm going to go to a Spirit game soon.
Oh, finally. You've been wanting to.
Yes, I've never been. Went to a Nats game. We lost, of course.
But they had the crab mac and cheese hot dog.
Oh, yes. Anyone who goes, I would highly recommend the crab mac and cheese hot dog.
So the Nats lost, but you won.
In a way, yes. And actually, they added Bold Rock back to the stadium.
Double win.
Which is my drink. And I was sad they got rid of it, so that's good for me. But, of course, the biggest event is not one that I attended personally. It was the NCAA Gymnastics Championships.
And one year we will get you there.
Eventually. If they don't have them in Fort Worth every fucking year.
Exactly.
Like they do. But, Erin, you were present. It was a delightful time. Hannah made layer dip. It was delightful.
God, so good.
Oklahoma won, which is what I wanted to happen. So I was very lucky.
And for yet another year in a row, I have not won our fantasy league.
But your year is coming.
My year is coming. My year is coming in 20 years when I have a daughter who's in college who I've raised through gymnastics specifically so I could draft her and I can win the league.
Exactly. Frankly, next year, unless something happens to Kaylin Shio's Achilles, whoever gets her probably wins. She's the only reason. What did I get? I got second or third last year because I picked her a diamond in the rough of the freshman class. Yeah. Maybe we should just have a rule that no one gets to have Kaylin Shio. And
we all just cheer for her.
Yeah. She's like our, neutral safe space.
Yeah, that could be it.
We'll consider.
Or if you get her, then you can't pick, like, anyone else in the top whatever.
Ooh, we'll talk. Anyway, you have a big reading journey to discuss.
Oh, do I ever have a big reading journey to discuss? Audiobook journey. So, I remember these books. I know you remember these books. The Lunar Chronicles. However, most of our listeners will probably only remember the first book, Cinder.
Yes, I never read those books. I didn't know what the series was called, but I remember the cover of Cinder very clearly.
That is, it's YA. It came out, God, when we were in middle school, 2012, something like that. And it was the Cyborg Cinderella one. And I remember I really liked it when it came out. I read that one. And only that one, because then there was, like, I read it when it came out, so the other ones weren't out. By the time they did come out, I think I just forgot about them.
Uh-huh.
Like, I never really, I remember I really liked it, but I never picked it back up. So as I've been doing my YA listening journeys, I've done most of the Uglies, Hunger Games, Matched. I've been working my way through series, and I was like, I really liked this one. They're all available, audiobook, very easily accessible. I'm just gonna go for it. Mm-hmm. God, did I fucking love those books. They were so good.
I'm so happy for you to find one that you genuinely liked and not just for, like, camp nostalgia value. I mean, exactly. I know you like the Hunger Games, but, like, I already knew that those were good.
The Hunger Games, they don't really count.
Yeah.
Because everyone likes
those have been, like, accepted into the canon.
My mom has been reading and watching the movies, and she's been loving them as well. So that's really big. But yeah, so these ones were really good. I got them as audiobooks, as I said. And what was kind of crazy is, like, the first two had, like, normal, they were, like, 10, 11 hours. Very normal.
Yes.
The next one was 16 hours, the third one, which I'm like, pretty long. The last one was 25 hours of an audiobook, which I listen on 2 times speed, as we know. So it didn't take me 25 hours. But I really love them. They each featured, like, all of the characters carried through. They kind of built, the cast of characters got bigger and bigger when they were introduced. But so, like, the first one was primarily from Cinder's perspective. It was still primarily about her at the end. Uh-huh. But each book featured a different, like, rewritten fairy tale. Mm-hmm. So the second one was Little Red Riding Hood. Will say, some furry vibes in that one.
Okay.
That was, The next one was Rapunzel. And that one was my favorite.
Okay.
And then, but instead of a tower, because it's, like, sci-fi, she's, like, in a satellite in space. So I'm like, that's really interesting. Like, mm-hmm. I like that. And then the final one was Snow White.
Okay.
But then also, they have, like, the author has, and this series is being made into a movie. Oh. It's going to be an animated movie coming out in 2027, which is also kind of why I was like, oh, like, let me do this next.
Do you think animated is a good call for these?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I think it would look, how the Uglies looked? It was, like, very overly ambitious in terms of what they had the budget for.
Yes.
With, like, the technology. I think this would look even more so kind of ridiculous.
Okay.
Unless they had, like, the Hunger Games budget.
Yeah.
So I think animated is a good call. The author has, like, 1 billion, like, short stories and, like, 1.5 novels. So I'm not going to read all of those. They're, like, short little novellas. But there is a collection of short stories. Mm. So I'm listening to that next on audiobook. But okay. I consider the series complete, having read it all. And like watching the Uglies movie, when I got to watch a recap video, there's a recap video on the entire series that is 2 hours long by, I believe the user's name is Shitty Book Club, but basically she's doing what I'm doing of rereading all these YA books. And this was the one where she was like, I still love this one. There's a lot that's not good in it, which I agree. I agree. That's how YA goes. That's how it ages. But yes, I had so much fun with these. They were so delightful and cute. I was, like, kicking my heels, giggling. I loved it.
Fantastic. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, so that was a great journey. I'm so excited to have, like, a good YA update for the pod.
Okay. Great. Finally.
What are you reading? You are also reading something of interest to me because it suddenly sparked a lot of media interest.
Yes. So I read Yesteryear, which it just came out and is super buzzy.
You finished, as of yesterday, you were, like, halfway done with it.
I'm done with it now. Yeah, it reads really quickly. So frankly, if anyone's, like, on the fence about whether or not they want to read it, you can read it very fast.
Yeah.
So you might as well go ahead and put it on hold. I got it off from the library pretty quick. You got it from Book of the Month, so you have a copy in your possession. Mm-hmm. Because of that, I won't go into too much detail. I will say in the end, I was not pleased.
Okay.
I can kind of sum up my thoughts by, I should probably say what the premise is first.
Yeah, and talk about, like, why it's kind of made a splash.
So the premise of it is that there's this social media influencer trad wife type. Mm-hmm. Think Nara Smith, think Ballerina Farm. Mm-hmm. Really mostly think Ballerina Farm, if you know who that is. Who is all about,
homeschooling your kids, drinking raw milk, like all of these like traditional, like fundamentalist Christian type things.
Yes.
And then she gets transported back to 1855 to actually have to live these values. I don't think, kind of what I think about it without going into too much detail is like that line from Clueless that's like, it's a full-on Monet. Like far away it looks good, but if you try to inspect any of the plot points too closely, it kind of gets messy. But I will say, like I said, I read it very quickly and I was entertained. So I still think worth doing if you're interested. If you were on the fence, I might pass it up.
And of note with this book, this is the one that I've seen all over Twitter because Anne Hathaway like bought the rights to it for a movie within like 24 hours of publication.
Yes.
And apparently had like a 15-way bidding war.
That's crazy.
So what I said to you yesterday that I am curious to see if you think it will still hold after having finished it. The premise of this book seems much more suited for a movie because it seems like the visual aspect is really important.
I think so too.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially given that it's about partially the impression that you give on social media. I think that will work better. I think Anne Hathaway, if she's intending to star in the role, will do a really good job.
When has she not done a good job?
Oh my God. I love her.
She's so good.
My favorite thing I learned recently, do you know that she's doing the Verity movie, the Colleen Hoover book?
Is she?
Yes. So apparently there's a scene at the beginning of that movie where Verity goes on Call Her Daddy.
Oh my God.
Like the character of Verity goes on Call Her Daddy.
Oh my God.
And I am so excited for that. It's going to age really poorly, but I don't think this movie was going to age well anyway.
Let's go see. That was the only Colleen Hoover I kind of liked.
I didn't read it because I had a friend just like tell me the plot of it.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. So
no, I think that's I thought it was a very interesting one. I will go see that in theaters.
Yeah. Well, it's the same, like, I didn't read The Housemaid, and I was just very excited to go see it anyway.
I haven't read that either, and I still haven't seen that.
Yeah. As we discussed, again, like we did in the Silence episode.
Exactly.
But
that we have films sitting back to back with us. So.
Exactly. But we're all very busy film-wise, so let's maybe dive into the synopses.
Yeah, sure. I think you already gave a good, reasoning for why we picked these, so I can get started with Antony and Cleopatra.
Of course.
Antony and Cleopatra dramatizes a major event in world history, the founding of the Roman Empire. The future first emperor, Octavius Caesar, later called Augustus Caesar, cold-bloodedly manipulates other characters and exercises iron control over himself. At first, he shares power with Mark Antony, Rome's preeminent military leader, and the weaker Lepidus. Caesar needs Antony to fend off other Roman strongmen like Pompey. He even offers his sister Octavia to him as a bride, despite Antony's reputation as a libertine and his past rivalry with Caesar. Once Caesar defeats Pompey, however, he needs no allies. He brings charges against Lepidus, denies Antony his spoils from Pompey's defeat, and seizes cities in the eastern Roman colonies that Antony rules. We haven't even talked about Cleopatra at all.
No, this is far too much of a description.
Anyways, the play's emphasis, however, is on those whom Caesar defeats, Antony and his wealthy Egyptian ally, Queen Cleopatra. The play does not sugarcoat Antony and Cleopatra's famous love affair, including her calculated attempts to seduce Antony from his duties and his rage when he thinks she has betrayed him to Caesar. Nonetheless, the lovers find such sensual and emotional satisfaction that Caesar's world conquest seems smaller than what they find in each other. That is a terribly written sentence.
Yeah, I concur.
Wow, that was abysmal.
Honestly, and you don't have to say that much. People kind of know Antony and Cleopatra.
You could just say, this is about Antony and Cleopatra.
Yeah. King John's is shorter, but similarly full of names.
Okay.
Like most of Shakespeare's history plays, King John presents a struggle for the English crown. The struggle this time, however, is strikingly cold-blooded and brutal. John, the younger brother of the late Richard I, is the king, and a savage one. His opponent is a boy, his nephew Arthur, supported by the King of France and the Duke of Austria. After Arthur falls into John's hands, John plots to torture him. Arthur's capture gives Louis, the Dauphin of France, the opportunity to lay claim to John's crown. John's nobles support Louis, but he schemes to betray them. The play finds its hero in another figure, the bastard, Sir Richard Plantagenet, an illegitimate son of Richard I. Although he has an appetite for war, he also has a strong conscience and speaks with trenchant irony.
It was very bare bones, but that was much better.
Yeah. It also just kind of is like, I don't know, glosses over what I consider to be the main thing, which is King John at war with France.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even mention all of the, like, stuff about the Pope.
Exactly.
And there's a whole bunch of Pope stuff.
Exactly.
Yes. So, for the first time, actually, in our pod history, we've decided not to prepare an author bio for you all.
And we don't even have one to tell you to go back and listen to an episode on.
No. Like, we just are like, you know what? People know who Shakespeare is.
Yeah, we're not getting into this. If you've read Hamnet...
If you've read it, exactly.
You know who Shakespeare of being in Hamnet's book.
So, that's it. It's Shakespeare.
Yeah. I am curious to know, like, you've been in some Shakespeare.
Yes.
You've read some Shakespeare. Do you have any, like, ones you don't have to list every single play you've read?
Yeah.
What's your journey of note with Shakespeare?
I was in Romeo and Juliet and Twelfth Night. So, a tragedy and a comedy. I've seen one of the histories performed. I can't remember which one exactly, but it was one of the Henrys. I hate to say, I should remember. Maybe it was Henry IV, Part 1. But those are probably my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Hamlet, everyone has to read. Like, I've read, like, a bunch for school.
I've never read Hamlet.
You didn't have to read Hamlet for school?
My teacher chose, it was between the two, and my teacher opted for Othello.
Oh, I haven't read Othello.
I liked Othello.
Yeah, I've read, I feel like the other ones, which are Hamlet and Macbeth. Like, in terms of, like, odds of getting taught in school.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I kind of have, like, a big reading journey. Like, we read, in high school, it was a play a year.
Mm-hmm.
Taming of the Shrew was my favorite that we did.
We did Taming of the Shrew.
One year we read Julius Caesar, but the modern English version, so we didn't read, like, the actual Shakespeare. It was like
That's interesting.
It was like a side-by-side, like, book. And then I was never in any Shakespeare. My sister was in A Midsummer's Night Dream, I think her freshman year of high school, so I saw that.
Fun.
In college, I took a Shakespeare, Race, and Gender class for my English major.
Very interesting.
But it was very cool because instead of reading it, my professor was very much like, yeah, this is a literature class, but Shakespeare should be seen performed. So we watched movie adaptations, which was really fun. We watched the fun Romeo and Juliet.
The Leonardo DiCaprio one?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the one with Emma Thompson?
Oh. I don't know. As You Like It? Much Ado About Nothing?
Much Ado About Nothing.
Much Ado About Nothing.
And the actor who played Gilderoy Lockhart was in it as well. But what was also fun was in that class, we had like an extra credit opportunity to go see a play, like to buy a ticket and go see a play. And so at the Folger Shakespeare Library, they were doing Merry Wives of Windsor, but it was set during the 70s.
Fun.
So that was super fun.
Love that.
But yeah, so I've seen a couple. We went last summer to Harrisburg to see Love's Labor's Lost. So that was fun. That was also set in like the 70s or 80s or something.
Actually, I saw a very fun adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing at the Shakespeare Theater Company here in DC, where it was set in like a newsroom.
Oh!
Like the two main characters were like co-anchors on like CNN.
Oh, that's so, I love the fun, like...
Yeah, because there's been so much Shakespeare that now you can just do kind of whatever, you know?
The setting play.
Exactly.
It's very fun.
Exactly.
But these two I had no familiarity with.
Same. And I think it is wise of us to have picked them for that reason.
Yeah, I think that's why we did have Julius Caesar as an option. I think that was why I vetoed that one.
But I am happy to have added 2 new ones to my overall, you know, Shakespeare list. I don't intend to like read all of them before I die or anything like that. But it's always nice to learn new things.
As we'll get into, I'm not really happy to have added them because I don't like Shakespeare. But we need to give our disclaimer first.
Yes, of course.
Which is our judgments come based on the play and the characters within the play rather than any real historical figures they may have been based on. Definitely the case here. Historical figures that I really have net neutral opinions on, to be honest.
And also ones that have been so long dead that honestly we could be mean about them if we wanted, I think.
Exactly. We could bash their actual character and who's going to come for us.
Plus, I think King John kind of sucked. But anyway.
Yeah. Also, spoilers ahead, but this is Shakespeare,
on.
so.
Yeah.
All right. I don't really enjoy Shakespeare. I struggle with it a lot, and you have to reference the footnotes a lot, which we know I'm not good at. What I really appreciate about my copy of Antony and Cleopatra was that the footnotes were side by side on the other page, so it was easier to reference.
And also at the start of each scene, they gave you like a little summary of it.
Oh, yeah.
So I found that better. I was also sick while reading both of these.
That's
so
not good.
It just made focus a little tricky.
Yeah. I liked King John, and I didn't like Antony and Cleopatra. You had already read it and not liked it, and I just thought that you were being a hater.
I was so, like, I felt so validated when you were like, actually, this is bad, because I thought it was just like, and I liked King John better than Antony and Cleopatra.
Yeah.
I didn't love either, because I don't love Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I am a hater. But I felt so validated when you were like, no, this is not good.
No, I didn't like it at all the whole time I was reading it. And actually, I was not a huge fan of the edition that I had.
Mm-hmm.
For King John, I was reading like a Folger Shakespeare Library edition, and I really do like those.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I had for Antony and Cleopatra, but it wasn't that, and I didn't enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
However, yeah, I read King John first. I was like, oh, I'm having fun with this. Started Antony and Cleopatra, had less fun.
Stopped having fun. Which one do you want to talk about first? Because I read them in the opposite order. I don't think it that didn't have any impact on my perception of King John. Like,
yeah, probably not.
Because I was already kind of going in expecting like, I'm not really going to be a fan.
Let's talk about King John, because I think we'll have more fun talking about Antony and Cleopatra.
I agree.
So we'll leave it to the end.
I'm going to give some highlights that I found for King John.
Let's do it.
Well, actually, first what was interesting, and I wish I had the copy with me, but they gave like a little prelude in the book, like about the play.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like a quote from Jane Austen in a letter. Did you have this in your edition?
No.
That it was like they were supposed to be showing King John and they switched it to Hamlet, and she was like so pissed off because her favorite actress was playing Constance.
Which is a great role.
Which is a great role. So, and in the prelude, it was like, you might think it's weird, but this is like widely regarded like one of his best female roles.
Mm-hmm.
So you might think it's weird that she was, bummed to have to see Hamlet, but,
No, that was one of the things I was like, this is a play just based on the like synopsis we read, especially. You wouldn't think necessarily that this was one that was like teeming with great female parts, but actually it has two really strong female leads. It has Constance,
mm-hmm.
who is the mother of the boy who's trying to usurp,
mm-hmm.
and you have Eleanor of Aquitaine of Royal Diaries fame.
Exactly.
Who is King John's mother.
Who I did not put together that I was at, Eleanor.
Exactly.
But that was my first and primary highlight from this play. I thought there were a great variety of female parts in it. I really enjoyed that. I thought their speeches were on par with the men's.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the speeches were some of the highlights.
And I want to add here, do you recall, and I definitely mentioned this on the pod, last year, the trivia gals and I went to Drunk Dracula.
Yes.
During the normal year, they did Drunk Dracula during Halloween. During the normal year, it's Drunk Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently...
we got to do that for a bonus episode.
They do this thing where... So the premise of it is that they have a handful of actors. They all are like kind of playing multiple roles, and there's not really like any real sets or anything like that. They just kind of run around. But they pick one character, like one actor at random, to have to do like a bunch of shots at the
mm-hmm.
beginning of the show. And then they have to do their performance drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the title. But then I think they let whoever that is come out later, because they're mostly doing it for comedy. They're exaggerating. Yeah. And they do like a serious monologue to demonstrate, first of all, if they're really drunk, it's funny, but also that they're like, I'm a good actor.
Yeah.
So when I went to see Drunk Dracula, it was a woman and she came out and she did Constance.
Really?
Yes. So I've seen not a play, but I realized like as I was reading it, I was like, why is this familiar to me? I was like, oh, I've seen someone do this.
That is so funny.
Yes. And it was really good.
Oh, we have to do that for a bonus episode. Okay, that's on lock.
Yes.
Season 6 bonus.
I wonder what they're doing, because I think they change what play they do.
If we can, I'm adding that to the planner document right now.
Right now, they're doing Drunk Romeo and Juliet.
Oh my god. Which is kind of the same thing as Antony and Cleopatra, but we'll get there.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think they kind of pick, like, the really popular ones. Like, they're probably not doing King John at Drunk Shakespeare.
They should be.
If in June, they start doing The Pirates of Penzance, which you've seen.
Which I have seen, also in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
That's their summer, and then they transition back to Drunk Dracula for a while. And then they do Drunk A Christmas Carol.
Oh my god.
They've got a great business model.
It seems like they don't have a lot of loyalty to Shakespeare.
I think that they do, like, some years they'll do Romeo and Juliet, some years they'll do Hamlet, some years they'll do Macbeth, you know? Like,
the big ones.
The big ones.
Taming of the Shrew would be funny. I don't like Shakespeare. I really like Taming of the Shrew. And I think it's just because I love the movie 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yes. Taming of the Shrew is actually really funny if you just don't remember how it ends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you don't remember that he sets up a framing device in the beginning.
And then doesn't come back
to it.
That's
which
classic.
honestly, iconic of him. Anyways.
No, but in King John, I actually feel like there's a lot of characters. I did not really have a hard time telling them apart.
No.
It was pretty convoluted. I think the first act was a little slow. Mm-hmm. Like, I wrote in my notes, I was like, King John is not even in this.
He's not. And also in this edition, and I wish I had taken notes on it, but, you know, I didn't have to do the historical research for this one. They gave, like, he's only on stage for, like, X amount of time, but he does have, like, technically, like, the greatest number of speeches, but the bastard has the greatest number of lines or something like that.
So I think that Constance and the bastard are the best characters. That's what I wrote down. Mm-hmm. But they all just are very easy to tell apart. Like, all of the characters have really distinct personalities, I think.
Yeah.
Even aside from just being like, King John wants this and the King of France wants this. Like, mm-hmm. you know, I had a hard time really remembering everyone's names.
I had trouble with remembering who was related to who. And
yes, because that's really convoluted. And then it's like, the King of France is Philip and his son is Louis, and I forgot like which was which.
In my edition, they spelled it Louis, and I really didn't like that.
But I could tell like the characters in the lines had their own personalities.
Yes,
so I enjoyed that, and I thought that came through very clearly. And I'm sure that's even more emphasized and even better when you're seeing actors perform.
Yeah, I agree. I think this would be a good one on stage. I think this one you could do a lot of fun work with the setting.
I think you could too. Especially with, because it's set, like, we'll get into this a little in historical accuracy, but it's kind of set in, like, an empire that no longer exists. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not just England as we know it now. Like, we talked about with Ashley in The Last Kingdom last season.
Exactly.
It's, like, a weird, different England.
Exactly.
But, yeah, so you have the political story. Randomly, in the middle of it, they throw in the Pope.
Which, I love a good excommunication. You don't get that nowadays. Like, you should be getting that in the real world nowadays. Mm-hmm. But you don't even see it much in, like, media nowadays. So no. I love that. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that, like, they were just excommunicating for anything.
Yeah. And I really enjoy, for Shakespeare, obviously this is, like, a many-year, like, global conflict, like, across multiple countries and all of that. And it just gets boiled down to, like, individuals in this like feeling like narrow period of time.
Same with Antony and Cleopatra.
Yes. Oh my God. So, but then it's just like this guy shows up who's the envoy of the Pope, and he's like, by the way, you are being excommunicated. And then he turns to the King of France and is like, by the way, we would like you to wage war on him.
Yeah.
And it's just so funny how it's just like, you're just doing it because this guy says so.
It makes me laugh. I'm like, you really aren't even getting the Pope's approval at this point. But
no, literally.
I liked that a lot. I really liked the bastard, who was like the nephew of King John's brother.
Yes.
No, the son of King John's brother, so King John's nephew.
Yes, half-nephew.
Half-nephew. Whatever. Half-nephew. I really liked his character. He kind of provided a lot of like the clarity and commentary. When people were just kind of being dumb, like he would kind of get a lot of the, hey, everyone's being really stupid lines.
Yes, he would tell people like it is. And also he was kind of going on like a personal journey while everyone else was like he's not eligible for the throne that everyone's fighting over, like blah, blah, blah. He just found out his father was not his father, but he's there and he's like loyal and participating in the war. And so his lines are the best ones.
Absolutely.
He's like the most of a real person, I think, and not like a figurehead.
And then to me, the worst character was Arthur.
I completely agree.
Such a little bitch.
He was so whiny. He didn't do anything. His mommy had to do everything for him. Mm-hmm. And then also he dies, and it was unclear to me how. I had to Google it.
As I was reading this one, this was like the height of me being sick. Mm-hmm. So I had a summary open on my phone and was cross-referencing because I'm like, I know I'm being a bad reader right now. It did say in the summary as I was reading that, like, he fell off the wall by accident.
Yeah, I thought at first that he killed himself, and I was very surprised by that because the scene before was someone coming to murder him, and he was, like, begging not to die.
Yeah.
But then, once I Googled it, they were like, no, he died by accident, which, again, is, like, falling off a wall and dying.
Like so stupid.
Most people can avoid that. Anyway, so yes, Arthur was the worst character, but everyone else was pretty good.
Yeah.
So, all in all, I would recommend this one. I also don't love, at the end, well, King John dies, spoiler. And so King John's son, Henry, oh my god, which Henry? I wrote it down. Henry III.
Mm-hmm.
Henry III comes in and he delivers the closing monologue.
Yeah, and it was all about a message of English unity. And, like, I hate English. I hate the English.
I mean, it's like, that's also boring. But also, it's like, he has not been in the play.
That's so classic Shakespeare, though.
That's the thing. It's like, he does it all the time, so it's not a problem with King John. And I guess it's probably not even,
I think Romeo and Juliet is that, too.
Kinda, yeah. Because it's the friar who I played.
Oh.
But he's not really been in the play most of the time. And this might not even just be, like, a Shakespeare thing. It could be, like, just a trend in that era of playwriting. But I don't like it.
I don't like it.
Yeah. That's kind of all I have to say about King John.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like it because I don't like Shakespeare. I thought this one was much more interesting plot-wise than Antony and Cleopatra.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, speaking of things we don't like.
Antony and Cleopatra, and I looked up the order Shakespeare wrote his plays.
Okay.
He is trying to reheat his Romeo and Juliet nachos. From,
he wrote that first?
He wrote it first, which you would think, how I thought it played out was he wrote this one, and then he's like, this is a good premise, but I did a bad job with this. Let me write something good. No, he wrote Romeo and Juliet first.
That's crazy. I Googled, because I know there are a handful of plays that people are like, these are the bad ones. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this must be one of the bad ones. And it is not widely considered one of the bad ones.
Do you remember what was?
I think people don't like Coriolanus.
I think that was one of the ones that I did in my Shakespeare Race and Gender class.
Well, also, one of the bad ones is Titus Andronicus. And I like Titus Andronicus, actually.
That was one we definitely did in the class, and we had a lot of discourse about the purpose of trigger warnings and whether they should be included on media, which was a very interesting
because that one's like, people don't like it because it's extremely violent as far as Shakespeare goes. But I like it for, like, sue me. However, I don't like this one, and I'm surprised that people do. Mm-hmm. So I will say, off the bat, people really like Cleopatra. And I do think Cleopatra's decently well written, not amazing, but I would think like a good actress could really sink her teeth into Cleopatra. Mm-hmm. Like she, especially at the beginning, it was really fun to read her parts because she is like, it seems very modern in the way that she's like playing games with her boyfriend. Like that was very funny to me. Like at the beginning, she sends off her handmaiden and she's like, go find Mark Antony. And if he's happy, tell him that I'm sad. And if he's sad, tell him that I'm happy.
She was such a diva, and I really did appreciate that. Like, she made me laugh.
Yeah. But I feel like you never got to her being, like, a very good, like, world leader.
No, and I think that's... And I will get to that in historical accuracy. Mm-hmm. But I think that was a limitation of Shakespeare's source material.
Oh, okay, great. I can't wait to hear
which
about
I will talk about.
Yeah. But no, the language was harder and more difficult to parse. I had a really hard time remembering who everyone was. I think this one would be easier if you just had a bit more foreknowledge of this period of history. Mm-hmm. But even that, I thought that I had like a baseline for it. And even then, I was kind of struggling.
And this one's also like interesting to part because it follows very closely time. I don't believe this is the case in terms of when Shakespeare wrote them. Time-wise, right on the heels of Julius Caesar, right?
Okay.
Because Mark Antony was, like, around and involved,
Yeah.
But it's such a departure in terms of writing because Julius Caesar, I did like when we read it, but it's so much more steeped in, like, the politics and those inner workings, whereas this is more, like, interpersonal relationships that are not fleshed out amazingly.
No, it really isn't. I think there's trying to do a bit too much here. Mm-hmm. Like, it's trying to have it both ways. And I don't think it works very well. I do think this would be much better presented on a stage. Because I found the language to be harder and it flowed less than
That's
King
what
John.
I wrote. It's like it's a lot of classic Shakespearean misconceptions in this. But I did not think the speeches were as good. I just, like, nothing really was evoking me.
Yeah, I didn't become attached to the characters. I didn't find any of them except for Cleopatra really to have distinct personalities.
Mm-hmm.
I just I was excited to pick this up because I read it in King John in succession.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a high coming off of King John and I thought it was good. And then this I didn't like at all. And I didn't find, even knowing how it would end, because I know the history and I'm like, this is a tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, there was not even that much of a speech from Caesar, and it was just anticlimactic with all the deaths.
And it's like I remember reading Romeo and Juliet the first time, and it's like you're rooting for them, and you don't want that to be the ending. You know it's coming. You don't want that.
Yeah,
I didn't care.
No, I didn't care at all. I was ready for it to be done. The last act is so long.
Oh my god!
And I was just so tired of it. Yeah. So if you want to see this one, I would see it performed somewhere. I wouldn't recommend reading it.
I think you can do a really great job with costumes in this one.
I'm sure it could probably be very fun.
Yeah.
But the only other things that I wrote down are when Cleopatra kills herself by having the snake bite her, they called it a worm, which I did not like.
I didn't like that.
Yeah. I'm just it's a snake. A worm is less scary than a snake.
Mm-hmm.
But then also Shakespeare used the word poop and the word haters. And I thought that was funny.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I know. I do think poop in terms of the poop deck, in terms of a boat, but still, it was still funny.
Before we get, do you have any other thoughts to wrap?
In terms of the history, I feel actually we picked these plays to be we'll do one tragedy and one history. They're not really that different in terms of genre.
Mm-hmm.
They both kind of follow the same Shakespearean conventions. So I don't think that those lines are that hard and fast.
Yeah.
I think we have drawn those as, modern historians looking back on Shakespeare.
And unfortunately, they didn't have podcasts back when Shakespeare was alive.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if you knew that or not.
Shakespeare should go on Call Her Daddy.
Oh my god. But, so we don't actually have the knowledge of what other readers of similar ilk to ourselves would have been thinking.
Yeah.
One thing, then this is completely, totally off topic, something I was doing as we were talking.
Great.
But Coriolanus, I did watch that movie for my Shakespeare, Race, and Gender. It came out in 2011, and it was Ralph Fiennes, whose name I can now pronounce correctly, thanks to you.
Uh-huh.
Gerard Butler, and Brian Cox.
Oh, the dad from Succession?
Yeah, and I'm that's a pretty stacked cast, but it was set, it's a modern war movie.
Okay.
So I remember I didn't really love the movie when I saw it, but that was also the first week I'd been sent home from school because of COVID. So I don't think I was invested in watching that movie. Not a good
time.
No. So I would actually like to watch that. Maybe I'll have Santiago watch that. Maybe that's what we do after the movie poster, is Shakespeare adaptations.
When are you going to do that?
After Batman.
The movie poster is forever away. You're not going to remember.
I'll remember because Santiago will listen to this episode.
Okay. Let's move into the history.
You're let's stop talking about this. Let's do reverse order. We do Antony and Cleopatra first.
Yes, I would love to hear.
Shakespeare's main resource for this play was Plutarch's The Lives of Noble Grecians and Romans. And that was written by Plutarch about 200 years after the events of the play.
Mm-hmm.
It is considered relatively faithful to the recorded events in history.
Okay.
Although, of course, there's room for, 200 years later, room for error. The events in this play really took place over the course of a decade. Shakespeare massively compressed it. That's something we talked about. That is something that's fine with me. Yeah, I don't care about that.
I agree.
Antony made a bid for power after the death of Julius Caesar, which eventually led to the divide of the empire 3 ways between himself. This source that I was reading called him Octavian.
That's confusing because I think in history this is who we remember as Augustus, but he was Octavian at the time.
Yeah,
he wasn't named Augustus.
The summary that I read called him Octavius, and this called him Octavian. So I don't know.
Yeah, that was one of my problems. But I think that's not something I can put on Shakespeare. That's a new thing.
Anyways, it divided between himself, Octavian, and Lepidus. Him and Cicero were major enemies. So Cicero wrote a lot about Antony being a drunkard and just massive debauchery and kind of a party boy. So that kind of ties in. Apparently Plutarch did a very fair, neutral depiction of Antony.
Okay.
But he did say his downfall was that he was, quote, seduced by success. And I think that's something you can see in this play.
Okay.
So what is interesting is that, as I said, I feel like Shakespeare's source material was very limited on Cleopatra.
Yes.
Cleopatra was incredibly feared by the Romans, a lot of that just due to racism. There's not a ton of existing material about her from the Romans, and what is existing is like super biased, and I'll get into that. And then most of the Egyptian texts that were about her were lost in the burning of the Library of Alexandria.
Ooh, so and we're always come back to that.
Nowadays, there's like more research into who she was, which is even why the Royal Diaries or something like that focuses more on her like
younger life
and her, rising prominence as a state leader.
Okay.
That was not necessarily available to Shakespeare. So in Plutarch's text, I have a quote from the Folger Shakespeare Library blog about him, or about his text. His Cleopatra was the consummate manipulator who loved not Antony, but power, and pulled his puppet strings to make him dance to her tune. I really like that.
That's so fun.
Plutarch's account can be no more accepted as fact than any other Roman account of Cleopatra, but it also forms the backbone of most Hollywood movies.
Okay.
So, I think based on Shakespeare's source material, which is, the firsthand accounts from, or not firsthand, but like the accounts from the Romans, I think she is portrayed well.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think that is an accurate portrayal of her at all, but I do think that is historically faithful to what Shakespeare had available.
Okay. That's a very interesting piece of historiography.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And then the last note I had, the suicides were accurate. Antony, after hearing false claims of her death, did take his own life. Cleopatra did kill herself so as not to be taken and humiliated by Octavian. There are claims that Octavian used trained snake charmers to attempt, quote, oral venom extraction to revive her, but that didn't work.
At least he tried.
I assume that means it's a fancy way of saying they tried to suck the venom out, right? Yeah. I don't think they had like the snakes reversed, but he got snake charmers for it. But despite his outrage, Octavian did follow their request, had them buried together, and gave the two servants who died with Cleopatra proper burial rites.
That's nice.
So, that was something.
And I think it was only one, but a servant died with Cleopatra in the book, or in the play.
Yes, I think it was only one as well, but the source I was reading did say two.
Mm-hmm.
So,
because that was this is so stupid. I think that character was named Charmian or something.
Yes.
But I kept reading it as chairman, like chairman of the board.
I did that too.
Yes.
And I was like, what is he the chairman of?
No, anyway.
But yeah, so I think, honestly, this play is, except for being compressed, and I think the order of something was switched, but it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from that, I don't think it was fully historically accurate. I do think it is historically accurate to the materials from the Romans.
That is great.
So that counts for me for historical accuracy.
Yeah, he was doing his best.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about King John. So, King John, in history, son of Eleanor of Aquitaine and Henry II, who was her second husband. Good for her. And he was the father of Henry III, who then became king after him. And he ruled over England, but also the Angevin Empire. I'm not pronouncing that right.
That's it's because Ashley's not here to correct us.
Yeah. Well, it's also long dead, so it's not like there's any people who are citizens of the Angevin Empire, So Henry II formed it through all of his various, he's I have claimed the throne of England. My mother has claimed to this duchy. I have Aquitaine through my wife. So he kind of brought it all together. So it was England and Ireland, and then half of what is France today. Mm-hmm. So when we're at war with France, it's I was going to say the right half. I suppose I should say the eastern half of France. So they're, England and France are at war over territory for many centuries before this and many centuries after this. Mm-hmm. So France would take back half of this land at the end of King John's life. That's not really depicted in the play, but he dies right at the end of it. So I'm not really going to fault him for that. But I think the thing that's interesting to me is King John is most remembered and most famous nowadays for being the king that signed the Magna Carta.
That was him?
Yes.
Oh!
And that is not mentioned at all in the play, despite the events of the play being extremely relevant to the Magna Carta.
That also helps me personally better situate when this takes place.
Yes. So this takes place in again, it's compressed, which I don't have a problem with, but the first 15 years of the 1200s. Mm-hmm. The first 10 or 15 years. So the latter half of the play deals with the Dauphin, the Prince of France, deciding that after the death of Arthur, he has like an equal amount of claim to the throne of England, and so he goes for it. This was, in real life, the First Barons' War.
Oh.
So in the play, it's depicted as Louis being like, well, I'm going to be the King of England then. But actually, what it was King John sucks. And he signed the Magna Carta at the insistence of his lords, the barons, and he wasn't obeying it. Like, he wasn't living by the terms that it set out and that he agreed to. So the barons went to Louis and they were like, we will support you at war if you would like to be the King of England.
Got it.
Yes. And as we know, that did not work out because the next King of England was Henry III. However, King John did die, so maybe they got what they wanted. The only other thing was, I'm going to discuss the involvement of the church in all of this. So this happened because it does get a mention.
Yes.
It's not dwelled on, but John gets excommunicated because he does not want to install the person that the Pope wants to be the Archbishop of Canterbury. What happened was the original Archbishop, well, not the original, the one that they had before, died. And there was, the people of the church within England are supposed to vote on another one. But there were two warring factions basically disagreeing. One of them helmed by John, one of them not. It's a very political back and forth.
Got it.
Finally, after 2 years, the Pope is like, I'm going to set up my own committee to elect a new Archbishop of Canterbury. They elect Stephen Langton, and King John is basically just like, no, I'm not doing that.
Okay.
That's why he gets excommunicated.
I think that is fair reason for excommunication.
Yes. However, Stephen Langton did eventually become Archbishop of Canterbury. He stayed Archbishop of Canterbury till he died. So, like, it wasn't that long because, you know, people die. But, like, 10 or 15 years. So, and the Pope enforced that basically after there was clearly not getting anything done in England itself.
Yeah.
So, I thought it was interesting that this figure, this Stephen Langton, was such an important figure in the play without actually appearing.
Yeah, that is very interesting.
Yeah. So, I think this one is notable for its kind of absences and elisions.
Yes.
You know, to make these broader events fit into this, like, kind of personal narrative.
I do think it was tactfully done.
Yes. So we're going to have some interesting things to do in our star calculator today.
All right, and I think it's time for that star calculator.
Let's do it.
So as you know, our categories are historical accuracy, originality, characters, prose or verse, since we're Shakespeare week.
You know.
And vibes. Do you want to start with King John? Because I've put that one first in the order of our spreadsheet.
Sure.
Okay. I guess I'll go first. Historical accuracy, I would give it a 3. I think I would have gone higher, but based on what you had just said of like the absences and like what he chooses to put in or not, I can't go higher. Originality, you don't really hear about this period of history. I'm going to give it a 5.
Hardly ever.
Yeah, you know. Characters, I'm going to go 5 because I really liked the characters. Prose, I'm going to give it a 3 because the speeches were good, but it's just, I know I have a personal struggle with Shakespeare. Vibes, I'm going to go 1. And that is an astoundingly high 3.4 because I gave that a 2.5.
The calculator does wild things sometimes.
I have to go fine leaning flop.
All right. I agree with you on historical accuracy, so that's a 3. Originality, I am going to go 4 just because I think back then people thought about this period of history more than we do now.
Okay, but is the calculator based on back then?
It's based on what I say.
Okay,
and that's enough. What I think. I am going to go 5 for characters. I think this one is really, really good characters. Prose, I'm trying to figure out, like, because I do think this is really good, but I don't think it's Shakespeare's best. So should I judge it against himself or against like everyone else?
The calculator does what you say.
I know. I think I'm going to give it a 4 here because I think if I had read like multiple pod author books, I would be like, this one's not as good as the other one.
Yeah.
You know? So we'll go 4 and then 4 for vibes because I also really enjoyed reading this. And that for me is a 4. And I think I gave this a 4.
Yeah, I think you did too because I saw that and I was like, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, you were like, how dare you? So for me, that is a fine leaning 5. This is a good read. And
All
I
right.
would recommend it to someone who already likes Shakespeare.
Yes.
I wouldn't say this is the first one that you should read if you're like trying to get into it.
The first one you should read should always be Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, let's go to Antony and Cleopatra, and I will let you start on this one.
Okay.
High
So,
honors.
historical accuracy, I'm going to go 4. I don't think I can go 5 just because we know a lot of it's wrong, but I think what you said was very compelling.
Yes.
Originality, I have to go like 2. Like, not only because he was stealing his own like Romeo and Juliet premise, but because people have been super fascinated by this like since it happened.
Yes.
You know, so I just can't really go higher. Characters, 3, because I like some of them, but not most of them. Actually, that's kind of high. I'll go 2. Just because I like Cleopatra, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like Cleopatra in that she's fun to read about, but I don't like that she lacks depth.
Yes.
But she has complexity for the time that she was written
Mm-hmm.
in. I don't know. Anyway, prose, also 2. I hated reading it. Vibes, 1, because I really hated reading it. So that's a 2.2, and I gave this a 2 on Storygraph.
Incredible. This one I guess I'll talk about that in the end.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost the same as you. 4 for historical accuracy. You know, I think Shakespeare did well with what he had available. Originality, 2. You know, it's so much like Romeo and Juliet, and at the same time, like the Roman Empire, not super novel. Characters, I would go 2 as well. I liked Cleopatra. I thought, based on what he was working with going in, I think he did make her an interesting character. Prose, I'm going to give it a 1. Vibes, I'm going to give it a 1. And that is a solid 2, which I had actually originally rated this a 2.5. And then after reading King John, I was like, this is a 2.5.
It's even worse than I
this
thought.
This is a 2. It is not the worst score I have given out on the pod for sure.
No.
But it is, I usually do not go that low.
No. This is firmly a flop.
Firmly a flop.
And I would like to say, I opened up Storygraph to double check on my scores that I had given. And shockingly, the community average score, King John has a 3.16, which is very low. And Antony and Cleopatra has a 3.59.
That's crazy.
No one agrees with us, which I don't like.
No, I think our opinions are fact unless we disagree with each other, and then there's a gray area.
Then, of course, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Will we agree or disagree on next week's book?
I'm excited to talk about next week's book.
I'm going to keep saying book, and probably you will too.
It's fine.
We mean play.
It's fine. It's fine. I am very excited to talk about next week's play, which was Amadeus by Peter Shaffer.
I have not read it yet, I will confess. It'll be interesting.
Not what I was familiar with before, but like when I was doing my research for recommendations for the season, aside from Shakespeare, it was probably like one of the top 4 recommendations for historical plays.
I can't wait.
So, you'll have to wait and hear what we think, but in the meantime, you can follow along with us on Instagram. Should we just say Instagram and Twitter?
Probably, yeah.
You can follow along with us on Instagram and Twitter at @5orflop_pod.
Don't forget, we've said multiple times, our Storygraph reading challenge is live, so you can go check that out for the rest of the season. If there are any books or plays or what have you that you think we should read or should be reading, you can fill out the recommendation form in the bio of any of our social medias, or you can just email us at fiveorfloppodcast@gmail.com.
And until next time,
happy reading!
Bye!